Hello, this is a Cram session for public speaking courses, and this is for your first speech, the special interest speech. Now, I'm doing this Cram session. This is the first semester I'm doing it in fall uh, 22 because I believe it's still better to develop the speakers in the prep time. You know, you saw me throughout the prep time give examples on how to do the speech in different ways and cut it up and so forth. And I still think that is the better way to do it. But I realize that some students, you know, that's why it's called cram session. These are going to be sent out. Uh, and I decided to do this the day before. So if you want any last minute advice or an example of the speech, you can watch it on my YouTube channel. By the way, the YouTube channel, of course, has links to other videos from the time that we were doing asynchronistic or other types of courses during the pandemic. So my YouTube channel has tons of extra, and you can actually see, there's one video of me jumping out of the plane. So, all right. So your first speech is exactly what it is, right? Your special interest speech. It's an informative speech. I just call it special interest because not to confuse it with the second speech. But it's a special interest speech, and your special interest is you and your future plan. Now, this is not about your job. This is not about your future job or your career or the field you're interested in. This is about um, this is about how you're getting there because a public speech, any kind of speech, any kind of structured speech is a story. You're telling a story. And so the first speech is, oh, I forgot to add this to my board. So I'll do this real quick. Your first speech is your story on how you're going to get to your career, your future plan. And so I like this speech a lot. You know, through the lecture where I got this from, and I still like it today. I made some changes to it, but it's a past, present, future. It's what we call a chronological speech pattern, and it's your story. You're telling your story, so you don't have to do any research because again, this is about you following the structure. And just a reminder how the structure works, a chronological speech pattern. You have your main point one, which is the past, main point two, which is the present, and main point three, which is the future. All right. So when you do this, you need to understand that your main points need to cover these. Now, again, it is about your path, not about your job. It is not, you're not describing your job. You only describe your job to explain how you're going to get to it. And you'll see in the speech, a speech I've done in front of you before, but just a reminder. Your past is like 10 years from that, from the past. Because I saw students, sometimes they talk about like they just graduated from high school and they talk about high school, for example. Now we're talking for students who are like in their late teens, early 20s, we're talking about childhood and teen years. If you're a returning student, which you know I was one of those at one point in my life, you might be talking 10 years, which might have been high school or might have been earlier than that. But usually childhood is the best and safest path for past. Your present is what you're doing now. What you're doing now. Going to college, pretty easy stuff. Pretty easy stuff. Going to college, working, maybe joining some clubs, stuff like that on campus. Remember, Com Club is a possibility. Forensics, debate team, but speech and debate. But what you're doing now, internships, whatever it is. And then finally, your last one is your future. Your future. And so the rule of thumb is 10 years from now, 5 years from when you get your degree. But I even say 10 years from when you get your degree. So that way, because sometimes students will be like, when I graduate, no, that's not when you graduate. It is when you are in your career. Like, how did you get there? Like, how are you going to make your mark when you're there? So this is what maybe it's like a basic setup routine. This is the setup, right? Setup to the story. This is the current conflict or action. And then finally the payoff, right? That rule of three stuff I keep talking about. Three is a magic number. Past, present, future. You're telling a story. And so enough of me. Let's go ahead and get the example. Oh, and always remember you have to have a culture community reference. Just a reminder, the one that I do for my speech example is in my past, but it could be in your present or future. So some quick examples that some students I have done in the past. Obviously not me, but I'm going to share some sort. By the way, as always, if I use a student example, they have given me permission to do so. All right. So in the past, I've had students who talk about being from a Latin family, a Mexican American family, and their future is in the mental health. So they talk about the stigma of mental health in their community. That's a frequent example I've heard in a lot of speeches. All right. So if you remember, you only have to do the culture community reference in one of these three. So if yours in the past, you can talk about, like I said, that example. Present one is like a club that you're in. So Gay Straight Alliance Club on campus, or you're in a volunteer club that is rebuilding your community because you're from um, a poor neighborhood and you do community service in that neighborhood. So there's examples, right? Lots of different examples of that. And then finally, another example of MP3 future. I've heard lots of students say, as a woman, as an African American, stuff like that, I want to bring representation to this field, right? So obviously, from students, the only one I could probably fall into is, of course, the from a poor neighborhood one. But I gave you tons of examples from students who have slipped a culture community reference. Only in one. Only in one. All right. This is a precursor to you making references in your second and third speech. Be smart. All right. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's see. We're going back to this thing you love. As always, just a reminder, congratulations. Your outline is the same for all three speeches. All right. So here's a couple things you need to know or remember. Okay. You make sure you do all the sections. Your speech is the main points, but the introduction is very important because, again, it's the setup. It sets it up. And the conclusion is just a wrap. So it's a 5-minute speech. Usually intro is 1 minute, 15 seconds at worst, no longer than 130. Main point 1, 2, 3, a minute each. And then conclusion 30 to 45 seconds. Pretty easy stuff. Transitions, as always, directions for it. Now you're going to hear me say this in when we speak. You've heard me give an example in class already, but when you start talking, we start the time. And this is again a future planning speech I would have gave back when I was in high school. All right. You ever find yourself when you're going off on a long trip and you see yourself going down that long road and you're just lost in thought and watching the trees, getting distracted by the buildings as they go by? That's how I feel when I think about my future sometimes into the film industry. Specifically, I want to be a film director because I want to get my art out there and um, and of course have a good financial career. Not all of us want to be film directors, but there's everyone. This is a college course, and you're looking at your future. So maybe my insights can help you. Of course, I can speak about this because I know my path. I've been working on this for some time, and I've done a lot of research when it comes to how to become a film director someday. So that's why I can confidently say that you're going to see my name as a director in a major motion picture someday. Of course, being a director is another way to get my art and my vision out there and hopefully still striving career. I'm going to show this by talking about how my rough neighborhood influenced it, how what I'm doing here in college to support it, and finally how I'm going to get my foot in the door in the industry. Enough about the topic. Let's go ahead and talk about where I'm from. I'm from a very poor, rough neighborhood from Fresno, California. It was gangs, drugs, poverty, lots of social issues, and we were all in this situation. And movies became our method of escape. And we did that escape in two ways. When that was when we go into the movie theater, and then when we would take refuge in our homes. When we go to the movie theaters, that was a way for us to get outside of that neighborhood, outside of that area where we always had to worry about the issues that we face with the gangs and the crime and just the just danger. And so getting on that bus, saving up that money, or maybe even getting one of the parents to take us out there was a way for us to have a little vacation in the movie theater and enjoy a movie under the AC and safety. And of course, sometimes we couldn't do that. So we would take refuge in our home. If we were fancy, we might have cable or we might have a VCR. And so in that little bubble in our home, we would take refuge in watching movies and getting lost in our thought, even though outside was still the issue that we face. When we would come together, mostly at night, it was a way to get away from that dangerous neighborhood. Now, enough about the escapism. Let's go ahead and talk about what I'm doing currently. Currently, I'm in college. Currently, I'm in college and I'm getting my self put together for that strike into the movie industry. And to make that strike, I have to earn my degree and then hopefully get some internship out there. But when it comes to the film degree, you got to go to film studies, you got to go to all this stuff. Now, when I applied for film school, I was looking at Emerson and USC, and I got them, but I couldn't afford them. So I'm doing my degree here in the community college to transfer to UCLA Film School. I need to take film studies and film history and so forth. Another aspect of that is the internship. That's why I relocated Los Angeles. I could have took community college and where I'm from in Fresno, but this is where the internship in film is, and I got to do that here. And so production companies, Monkey Paw, Apatow, anybody that gives me a possibility in foot in the door in the industry as an intern, I'm doing it. And that's what I'm doing in college. But now let's look at where I see myself in the film industry. And down the line, I'm hoping to see myself having put my foot in the door successfully and making my name out there. And to make my name in the film industry, I gotta get it out there by taking any opportunity I can in the studio system and putting short films in the film festivals. Now let's look at the film industry and strategies to get in there. Now, I've done a lot of research on it, and one of the things I'm looking to do is any job that comes available, I'm going to do it and hopefully get my name into the studio system. So where they know, oh, that PA who just got our coffee, that's a film graduate from UCLA who wants to be a director someday. Or when I become a second assistant down the line, that I have maybe found some mentors. And enough about getting my name in there. I got to put my name out in the open. And the best way to do that is with film and getting short films done and hopefully taking them to the festival, posting them on YouTube or any other places where I can get my small films on there. Hopefully will get me to establish my name. And in doing so, I hopefully have successfully got my name in the industry. Now, you heard about how I see myself in the industry. Let's go ahead and just wrap this speech up. First, I talked about the neighborhood I escaped. Then I talked about what I'm doing here in college, my college years, and then finally how I'm going to successfully get into the film industry. And by looking at all that, I know someday that my name's going to be on that line for film director. It's going to get my art out there. It's going to help establish me successfully. And the next time you're on that long road, remember the journey I'm taking and make sure you don't get distracted by the trees and buildings. All right, I went a little over, about 45 seconds, 46 seconds over, but that's okay. I was doing impromptu on that. And just a reminder, you set my alarm for tomorrow work. You have like that. Remember, I said in class, you have 50 seconds. 50 seconds before the 5 minutes, 50 seconds after the 5 minutes. If you're in that time range, you don't have to worry about points taken on. It's when you go more or too short, not the artist, who's awesome live in concert, but it as long as you don't go too short or too long, you should be just fine. So the 50 of the 5 and 50, the 5 minute mark is where you want to hit. So when you're practicing and using this cram session, just remember, don't stress. There's a lot to it. All right, so this video is there. Last minute help and advice. Hopefully, you know you can always contact me through Canvas and so forth. All right. Good luck, but then again, you have this. And remember what I said about teaching people how to ski. If you look down the hill and you tell yourself you're going to fall, you're going to fall. If you tell yourself you're going to have problems before your speech, you're going to have problems before your speech. Make sure you're well rested, well fed, and make sure you don't tell yourself any negatives, because positive thinking is one of the easiest ways to get over anxiety. All right. Contact me if you need me. Have a good one. Good practice cram session. That's it.